I guess it might be that in some cases he was able to convince some people.
I don't think he will solve the problems. I mean, he's a very pro-EU man.
Because one of the things that was obviously capturing media attention and world attention in the run-up to the election was obviously the very visible presence of American politicians, especially J.D. Vance and Elon Musk, being involved in various different ways around the German elections. On the one hand, I mean, as people will know who follow our YouTube channel, I was cheering Vance's speech. I thought it was a brilliant intervention. I agreed with almost every word of it, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, you felt that this kind of involvement of American politicians is always has a kind of double-edged sword quality to it. And I wonder if, at least in this election, did that play into the dynamics of the election at all? What did you make of that?
Well, I mean, I thought the Vance speech in Munich was brilliant. And I know, like, my wife could not stop talking about it for a week. It was going on and on and on. And she got pictures of J.D. Vance all over the house, sort of, as a result of that. So I thought that was really brilliant. And I thought that it was actually, quite good that, Orban, for example, met the head of the AfD, that, for example, Trump also went out of this way to make those meetings happen. However, I do think, and I say this as a sovereignist, that every time a leader of a foreign power intervenes in a domestic election, it doesn't have the impact that you'd imagine. I know, for example, that I know a lot more about Hungary as a Hungarian than about Germany. And I do know that if Trump basically said that people should vote for Orban, even though I support Orban, it would not have a good effect. Most Hungarians would resent the fact that somebody puts their nose into what is a domestic matter. And I think that a lot of people who imagined that Elon Musk's and Trump's intervention was going to help they were mistaken, didn't understand that in many respects the same sovereignist spirit that leads to supporting Alex's party is also the same sovereignist spirit that doesn't always like when foreigners tell Germans what to do and what not to do. And I think that there's a lesson there. It didn't cause any problems, but it certainly didn't have the stimulating effect that people fantasized about.
Yeah, and one related thing, Alexander, to that was that it, and has been, I think, the dominant narrative in the wake of the election, really, has been the way that Merz has begun to cast himself not just as now the probable likely chancellor of Germany, but also the kind of now the savior of Europe. He's the person who's going to put together the new defense agreements. He's even kind of almost talking about starting a European version of NATO, et cetera, et cetera. And so that this difficult geopolitical moment that we're in has in some sense allowed Merz, I don't think most people find it a bit superficial, but has allowed him to cast himself much more in the role of a leader.
Yeah, at least, on a point what I just mentioned before, on a position of opposition, you are able to talk about a lot of things and just say that you have a positive view, a positive perspective for Europe and Germany. And I guess it might be that in some cases he was able to convince some people with this kind of rhetoric, with this kinds of idea, which are mostly just a copy of the ideas of AfD. But so at least I'm quite sure that he will not be able to have solutions when he governs. So at least, when we talk about in 4 years, and my co-speakers also mentioned that, I'm pretty sure that AfD will be the strongest party in Germany exactly because of that, because he is not able to get the ideas he made when he was in the opposition to have solutions for that when he is in the government. And I guess because of that, CDU is going to be decreased, the socialists, all parties are going to be decreased, and I'm quite sure that in 4 years we are going to be the strongest party in Germany.
Yeah, well, we talked already, Sabina, about how it was kind of unconvincing, the CDU suddenly taking a strong stance on migration. But we've also, in this whole conversation, we haven't even mentioned the economy. And when there were these reports of Merz coming out and saying that the French and the British might provide the nuclear weapons and Germany's going to fund it, because we've got this fantastic economy that everybody is really jealous. And I was like, have they not been paying attention to the last few years in Germany, right?
I think they have. I mean, we've had, we're not talking about just a few, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of industrial jobs which have fallen away. Just Mercedes has announced cutting jobs just last week. Today I read that Stadler, a big company in Berlin, is in deep trouble. We do have a very, very swift and rapid deindustrialization. And Merz has always been presented as the kind of man who might be able to solve that, because they said, well, he came from the kind of free business sector. So he left politics. He was a rebel. He was an opponent of Merkel, which is actually quite interesting, which is the only reason why he was able to be pushed through at this stage, because he was actually an anti-Merkel man. So they were selling him to us as somebody who would do away with the problems Merkel created. But I agree with my co-speaker here that, yes, I don't think he will solve the problems. I mean, he's a very pro-EU man for a start. So if he continues to always be, how is he going to manage the migration problem if he continues to support the EU the way he does? He actually embraced von der Leyen at the beginning of his election campaign, even though the CDU, many in the CDU said they don't like the Green Deal. Well, why does he, you've never heard him say anything against the Green Deal. He always makes these kind of allusions. So he's not going to, and as was said before, he's trying to build a cooperation with the Social Democrats, which are not going to allow for any of the things we need, like a reduction of bureaucracy. He's been talking about that, but I don't see that. I don't know how he's going to be able to achieve that with his new coalition partner, nor is he going to be able to get Germany's totally over-the-top social security expenditures under control, because that's a very big thing for the Social Democrats. They're not going to allow cuts. That's their main kind of political line, and Merz is not going to be able to do any of the things which Germany really will need. So I don't think, I agree. I think it'll be the next years will be lost years, will be years which, again, we're in a kind of transition, and we'll see what